Hi, my name is Robin Wong and I have here with me the Samsung S10 Lite. In this video, I want to review the camera performance of this smartphone. I am a photographer. You give me any camera, I'll be very thrilled to play with it. Let's get started. Before we go any further, here are some very important disclaimers. I do not own this particular phone. The Samsung S10 Lite is a loaner unit from Samsung Malaysia. I have to return this phone to them after this review purposes. I have no affiliation with Samsung Malaysia. This is not a sponsored video. Samsung Malaysia did not ask me to do this video review. I'm doing this because I genuinely wanted to, and I'm curious to see how the camera in the latest smartphone can perform. I am not a tech and gadget reviewer, but I am a photographer, so I will only be reviewing specifically the camera performance of the Samsung S10 Lite. Looking at the paper specifications, there are three separate camera modules at the back of the Samsung S10 Lite. There is the main wide-angle camera, the ultra-wide-angle camera, and a dedicated macro camera. The main wide-angle camera can shoot 48 megapixels, has an equivalent 26mm focal length, and f2 bright aperture. The main camera is also image stabilized. The ultra-wide-angle camera can shoot 12 megapixels, has 12mm equivalent focal length, and a bright aperture of f2.2. While the macro lens can shoot 5 megapixels, has an equivalent focal length of 25mm, and f2.2 bright aperture. Both the ultra-wide-angle and the macro camera modules do not have image stabilization. The main camera can record up to 48 megapixels, but the default camera setting for the Samsung S10 Lite is set to 12 megapixels. And believe me, 12 megapixels is more than sufficient for any photography purposes, even for today in 2020. Looking at the images captured from the main camera, the images came out sharp, detailed, has good dynamic range, has very good contrast, the colors are very punchy and true to life, perhaps a little bit oversaturated, and yes, the JPEG processing is very heavy, there is some HDR computational photography happening, the camera does analyze the scene and apply the best processing to optimize the image output. I'm looking at the Samsung S10 Lite from a consumer's perspective, not necessarily from a professional photographer's perspective. Most people would prefer the images to come out beautiful and ready to pose immediately. While the heavier processing aims to deliver beautiful images straight out of the camera, the heavier processing does cause slight loss of detail. If you pixel peep and scrutinize the images, there are traces of over sharpening and the images doesn't really look very natural, but we don't look at images at 100% magnified view. If you look at the images as it is, I think the processing works wonders for consumer level photography. Looking at the 48 megapixel images taken from the main camera in comparison to the 12 megapixel capture, I don't really see that big of an advantage. Yes, the images appear more detailed and sharper, but once you actually resize the images down to the normal viewing sizes that is typically in Facebook, Instagram, or any websites, you cannot really tell apart whether the image was taken with 48 megapixels or 12 megapixels. The main camera also delivers the best image quality of all the three cameras and should be the main camera that you use for the Samsung S10 Lite. Moving on to the ultra-wide-angle camera module of the Samsung S10 Lite, I think it is amazing that a lot of smartphone cameras now include an ultra-wide-angle coverage. This is certainly useful when you need to fit a little bit more into the frame. You want to do a huge group photograph, but you don't have a lot of space to stand far away from the group, or you want to fit a bit more in your landscape shot. The ultra-wide-angle does come in handy in some of these situations. However, do bear in mind that the ultra-wide-angle camera in the Samsung S10 Lite does not have autofocus. It is fixed focus, meaning that all you have to do is just point the camera at whatever you want to shoot and you just press the record button and the camera will capture the image. This is not a surprise considering that the camera has a very small image sensor and the focal length is very wide. This gives an infinite depth of field, meaning that the camera can record everything in focus without the need of using any autofocus. The ultra-wide-angle camera was very fun to use. I did get some very interesting shots shooting urban landscapes and the buildings in Kuala Lumpur. The camera does feature an auto correction for distortion, so the images that comes out from the Samsung S10 Lite is already corrected. You don't have to worry about any ugly barrel distortion. Moving along to the macro camera module of the Samsung S10 Lite, it shoots 5 megapixels. While some people may complain that the 5 megapixels is not enough for any photography use today, I would like to argue otherwise. I would prefer to have a good 5 megapixels performance over, say, a 64 or 100 megapixels, which is not really optimized. And I think that the 5 megapixel macro lens is very useful if you want to go really close to your subject. For example, if you want to shoot jewelry, and if you want to go really close up, magnifying some really fine details in product photography. Similar to the ultra wide angle camera module, the macro lens does not have autofocus, so anything that falls within a close-up range, a very close-up distance from the lens will be in focus. All you have to do is just hit the record button and the camera will capture a shot. When we shoot in low light environment, the Samsung S10 Lite can still perform quite well. Without even activating the night mode, the Samsung S10 Lite's main camera can capture very clean images in very dim situations thanks to two very important features. One, the bright aperture of f2, as well as the image stabilization that is built into the camera. For most urban landscape night photography, the Samsung S10 Lite's camera can perform very well. Unfortunately, the ultra-wide-angle lens does not have image stabilization, so that makes it a little bit less useful to shoot night photography, but you should be really using the main camera to get the best out of the Samsung S10 Lite. I have tried the camera's dedicated night mode. I don't think there's anything to write home about the night mode. All the night mode is trying to do is brighten the image using slower shutter speed and create an image that is probably overexposed. I would still prefer to use the default camera mode for the main camera, which is more than sufficient to produce excellent night low light photography. The Samsung S10 Lite camera also has a Pro mode. The Pro mode allows the control of ISO, white balance, and exposure compensation. Unfortunately, we cannot control the shutter speed from the Pro mode. Also, it is worth noting that the adjustable ISO in the Pro mode is from 100 to 800. I personally wish that the ISO starts a bit lower, perhaps ISO 50 or ISO 64. And it will go higher than ISO 800. ISO 800 being the cap is barely sufficient for a lot of low light photography. Looking at the high ISO performance, I would say that I'm happy with anything up to ISO 400, and even at ISO 400 we can notice quite a lot of noise in the image already. Now, I wouldn't go beyond ISO 400. At ISO 800, the image has too much noise to be usable. I highly recommend that you use ISO 200 or lower for optimized image quality. Perhaps the biggest complaint I have of the Samsung S10 Lite is the lower refresh rate and slight lagginess of the live view display. First of all, I don't deny that the super large 6.7-inch Super AMOLED Plus screen was a joy to look at. It is bright, it is contrasty. I have no issue using this large screen even under bright sunlight. I can frame and compose my images on screen very easily. However, the screen has a refresh rate of 60 Hz. But the live view of the camera is not 60 Hz. I don't know why no reviewer is mentioning this in their gadget reviews, even the very large and respected sites. No one has ever mentioned that the refresh rate of the live view is not 60 Hz. To me, it seems more like about 20 to 30 frames per second, and when we are shooting in fast-moving situations, when the subject is moving, or when we pan the screen, we can actually feel that the screen is not smooth. I have also reported the same issue in the Samsung Note 10 Plus review previously, and this issue is still here in the Samsung S10 Lite, and I'm sure this problem is not exclusive to Samsung. This is a general problem with a lot of smartphones, even expensive flagship smartphones out there. Why can't we have a smooth, lag-free, high refresh rate live view display on the smartphone? Besides the lower refresh rate, which is quite annoying when I'm trying to compose certain situations, there is a slight delay in the display of the live view. This is of course not a deal breaker, it is not a big problem by any means. Of course, if you are a consumer, if you're not a serious photographer, you don't really need that super fast response from your camera. But I am a photographer and I'm sure a lot of photographers will agree with me. Every single bit of display will cause us to miss that critical moment. I would think that having a very powerful processor such as the Snapdragon 855 built into the smartphone and the advanced camera module, they will be able to minimize the lag that is on the live view. The autofocus in the S10 Lite is not the fastest in the market. I noticed a slight delay, maybe half a second or less, but everything adds up. The view is already slightly delayed, and then there is the delay of the autofocus, and then there is shutter lag, which means after you press the shutter button, there will be some tiny lag between the press of the shutter button and the capture of the image. Everything adds up cumulatively, and that causes me to lose some critical shots. Nevertheless, the smartphone camera is not meant for you to use in a professional environment. You shouldn't be doing anything too serious with the smartphone. If you want a raw camera performance, you should be using a real camera. For what it is, for a smartphone camera, the Samsung S10 Lite does perform really well. There are a few more minor issues that I do have to mention, but these again are not deal breakers. These issues are not exclusive to Samsung, but I have to mention it because this is a photography specific test. If you point the camera straight at the sun or any strong source of light, you do get some flare problem, and it's very evident. It can be destructive to the photograph. So all you can do to rectify this problem is try to angle the camera away from the source of light if you can, or don't shoot directly at the source of light. For the ultra wide angle, it is quite evident that there is purple fringing problem noticed in bright and contrasty areas, and the corners of the ultra wide angle lens is quite soft. Again, this is nitpicking. If you really pixel peep and zoom into a certain area, you'll find flaws. But for general consumer use, for general smartphone photography, the ultra wide angle lens performs considerably well and should not pose any real problems. I am now testing the video recording of the Samsung S10 Lite. Currently, I'm recording in Full HD with super steady on, the full image stabilization to give that gimbal-like effect to smoothen any shake while the camera is moving. I'm walking at quite a fast pace. The camera is doing a great job in making the footage really steady and smooth. Unfortunately, the stabilization is not available for 4K recording. That would have been really awesome if they make it for 4K. But this is only for Full HD, and so far the video looks really smooth. The details looks really crisp. I like the color from the video. Everything looks really steady. This is almost like gimbal-like. I think stabilization in the video recording for smartphones has improved so much over the years. You can just handhold this smartphone and just run and gun with no issue. Now let's take a look at the pond. We do have the clock tower in the reflection. Beautiful. This is the Sultan Abdul Samad building in Kuala Lumpur. Let's slowly pan up until we see the clock tower against the bright sky. It is slightly backlit, but this is a good test to see how the camera handles dynamic range, and I think the S10 Lite video shooting is quite good. And I'm recording this portion of the video using the 4K video recording on the Samsung S10 Lite. Everything is straight out of the camera. I'm recording the audio from the smartphone's microphones. I didn't edit the audio. There's no grading done to the video footage as well. Everything is as seen, straight out of camera. I think that the video recording is a huge integral part of any smartphone cameras today. Everyone is a vlogger. Everyone wants to be a YouTuber. Everyone is posting video content on social media such as IGTV or even Facebook. Video has become a very important part of social media today. But personally, I would still want to use an actual camera for vlogging, for better image quality, for better controls. But I do have to admit that having the convenience of a smartphone that you can carry everywhere with you, going into places where sometimes camera is banned, having a very high quality video recording capability in a smartphone can make a difference. And the Samsung S10 Lite is capable to record 4K video up to 60 frames per second. That is incredible because a lot of other cameras today, even the very expensive cameras, do not even have 4K 60. All in all, I'm very happy with the performance of the camera in the Samsung S10 Lite. The camera is capable to produce very beautiful images. They perform well in low light. The images come out sharp, clean, with beautiful colors, and I think they are ready to use and they are very, very optimized. My only real complaint as a photographer is the slight delay and the lower refresh rate as seen on the live view of the camera. I certainly wish that the Samsung can improve the responsiveness of the Super AMOLED screen when in use for the camera's live view in the future. For an everyday carry-around do-it-all camera, I think the Samsung S10 Lite provides excellent performance and good value for money. If you have enjoyed watching this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to this channel, and I will definitely see you again in the next one. Until then, please remember to go out and take more photographs. Bye-bye.